Did Joe Rogan just expose an almost 100-year-old plan for the corporations to take over America? Judge for yourself.
The US once overthrew a country because of bananas. For decades, one company, United Fruit Company, has established a massive monopoly over banana production in America, turning several countries into banana republics. In 1950, Guatemala democratically elected Jacobo Arbenz, and he decided it was time for a change. Arbenz wanted to redistribute some of United Fruit's unused land and give it to poor Guatemalans. The United Fruit Company did not like this, so they went to Washington and began spraying the one word that always gets Uncle Sam going: communism. The UFC spent thousands lobbying to Congress, and they literally spread fake news linking Arbenz to communism. The plan worked. In 1953, President Eisenhower authorized the CIA to lead a coup in Guatemala. Within a year, the CIA empowered rebels who then swiftly overthrew Arbenz and put into power a leader that aligned with US interests, including the interests of United Fruit. This event plunged Guatemala into decades of terror and suffering led by US-backed authoritarian regimes. Now, what happened to the United Fruit Company? Well, to this day, business is still booming. However, the United Fruit Company goes by a different name now.
Seems a little fishy, doesn't it? Like there's all this corruption all around us, right? We know it. But when we say things like banks run America or the Federal Reserve is a scam, we get called conspiracy theorists. If you watch this video all the way until the very end, you're going to understand the role corporations have played in our financial system, war, and even more despicable things. Let's get it. I'm not a financial advisor. Welcome to the channel. I'm your host, BitBoy, and today we are getting deep. If you want your political, financial, and historical IQs to increase, watch this entire video. If you enjoy going down the rabbit hole of reality, then click the subscribe button and like this video if you find value in it. Then go join us on Discord, my new home base for social media. Let's make like rabbits and multiply your knowledge on serious, complex financial issues. Corporations play an important role in the web of corruption that underpins our global economy and political system. If the banks are the facilitators or the powers that run the world, then the corporations are the foot soldiers. Many people believe the corporations are just businesses. Makes sense, right? But it's not really how it works. Corporations are legal entities that often work as shields to protect the people behind the company. This is good in many ways because business owners and entrepreneurs should have some guarantees that the risk they're taking won't totally ruin their lives. But there should be a line with what they can get away with. Here, domestically, most of the issues that we face from corporations have to do with them selling unsafe products to make an extra buck. But when we look at their impact on the rest of the world, it gets much worse. Corporations are notorious for extracting their resources and recruiting their labor from faraway countries and totally devastating the local communities. The most infamous example of this is the way that fruit companies terrorize much of South and Central America throughout the past century. Glad to hear the fruits are finally getting their due. This is where we get the term Banana Republic from, and you thought it was just a not cool metrosexual pants store. If you've never heard that term before, Banana Republic is used to describe a country that is heavily controlled by a foreign corporation that controls their governments and extracts their natural resources, and that's what you're wearing on your body. The term is traced back to United Fruit Company, a major American corporation that dominated the banana trade in Central America during the early 20th century. The company had total control over banana production, land ownership, and politics in countries like Honduras, Guatemala, and Colombia. I said that really weird. Colombia. The United Fruit Company is still around today, but now they're called Chiquita, and they're still getting into trouble. Just this month, the company was trending after a court found that they hired paramilitary death squads who were taking out their local enemies. They now had to pay over $38 million from just this one case, and they could be looking at billions in fines and restitution by the time this is all over. It gets even crazier than that, though. They were apparently involved with the drug trade, too. You can check this tweet out. Guys, the evidence is there. This is real. This is not a conspiracy. It seems like there could be a cartel connection here, which wouldn't surprise me. The more you dig into this, the more you will see these high-level organizations work together, including the banks, the governments, and the cartels. The banks have had their hands on this too. This is very interesting. Citibank was one of the main financiers of the United Fruit Company before they changed their name, and are often known as Banana Republic Bank in Latin America. Nearly every product or resource that you can think of has a similar supply chain from food to diamonds. The De Beers Diamond Company, which is notorious for the blood diamonds we all know about, it's a great movie, by the way. Through the 20th century, they totally controlled the global diamond market with over 90% control of the industry. Now that number is under 50%, but they still have a ton of control. This company has a direct connection to the R's, the Both Children family as well. Founder of De Beers was an oligarch named Cecil Rhodes, and he was basically an agent of the R's. The country of Zimbabwe was once called Rhodesia because he claimed the territory for himself. One of the most wild stories like this from our lifetime is the involvement that Firestone Tires had in the Liberian Civil War. The details of the story are insane, and it was actually pretty recent. This happened in the 1990s when I was a kid. Firestone, the tire company, had a rubber plantation in Liberia where they used underpaid labor and treated their workers terribly for decades. Eventually, there was an uprising and a civil war in the country where Firestone attempted to be a power player to keep their plantation running, paying off warlords and involving themselves in the Civil War. There were a ton of different factions in this war too, including a group of cannibals calling themselves the Tupac Army, and their arch enemy, General Butt Naked, who instructed his army not to wear any clothes during battle because he believed it made them invincible to bullets and gave them supernatural protection. As funny as it sounds, the war was actually very brutal, and many people don't know that one of the most popular tire companies in the country was right in the middle of it. This touches our politics too, a lot more than people realize. Many of the wars that we're involved in have a lot to do with these resources that U.S. corporations have interest in, which makes sense because politicians are often major shareholders in these corporations. Our foreign policy in the Middle East and its connection to oil is obvious, but that isn't the only example. The entire Cold War was all about fighting over access to resources and labor in parts of the world that were strategically important. We are told that it was a fight of capitalism against communism. But these things are more about money and power, not ideology or humanitarianism. They take advantage of those things. Even going back as far as World War I, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that corporations and banks are directing U.S. foreign policy. I think it's 100%. I always thought that this was just one of those crazy things the hippies say. But in my research, I've seen that some of the most respected military leaders in U.S. history were actually saying the same things, but we don't listen to them. Check out a few of these wild quotes from Smedley Butler, a highly decorated U.S. Marine Corps officer who spoke out about the overall nature of U.S. foreign policy and how the true motives were a lot different than the people were told through the media. And this is what Joe Rogan was referencing. Here's one of the quotes. I spent 33 years and 4 months in active military service, and during that period, I spent most of my time as a high-class muscle man for big business, for Wall Street, and the bankers. In short, I was a racketeer, a gangster for capitalism. He also said, I helped make Mexico, especially Tampico, safe for American oil interests in 1914. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the National Citibank boys to collect revenues in. I helped in the pillaging of half a dozen Central American republics for the benefit of Wall Street. The record of racketeering is long. I've helped purify Nicaragua for the International Banking House of Brown Brothers in 1909 to 1912. I brought light to the Dominican Republic for American sugar interests in 1916. How sweet. Sorry, I made that part up. That part's not in the quote. I helped make Honduras right for American fruit companies in 1903. Dwight Big D Eisenhower, U.S. president who was a decorated general during World War II, warned about the dangers of the military-industrial complex, which is essentially the alliance of the government, banks, and the corporations behind the military. It might seem like all this conquest would benefit the average American, and it is actually kind of a blessing and a curse. In reality, that's not the case. It actually makes things worse. In a functional economy, businesses provide jobs and earn money that they put back into the market. But these multinational corporations don't provide good jobs. Most of them are running sweatshops in foreign countries. Sometimes they face penalties and fines, but they rarely face any type of legal trouble that would put them out of business. In the worst case scenarios, they usually just need to change their name or allow themselves to be swallowed up by another company. And in both cases, the people behind the companies are still making a fortune regardless. Looking into the dangers and travesties of war and corporate involvement, definitely sticky territory. But just know, the financial war these corporations wage is much more dangerous than any bullet that has ever been fired. Corporations are not fun-loving pride supporters who just want the best for humanity. Amazing. They want the best for themselves. And if today shows anything, they're taking no prisoners. Make sure to jump into our Discord server, link down below and on the screen, if you want to know more and engage with me, the BitBoy. That's all I got. Be blessed. BitBoy out.